And
That happened
then
in September. I died, came back.
she died and came back to life, but she's okay.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Mom Vibes podcast. I'm Portia.
And I'm Carissa, and we took a long break.
Very long because I almost
Because
died.
Portia almost died. She went into the hospital, but we are back.
I am back.
And you're healthy.
Better than ever.
Yes. We do have a very special guest with us today.
Hi, I'm Emerald Rice.
Emerald! Emerald with Cornerstone Lactation.
Yes.
Yes. So as you guys can probably tell, we're going to talk about boobs.
Boobs and what they do and what they're meant for.
Okay.
For real, for real.
But before we jump into boobs, breastises, we were out on a little hiatus. So what had happened is that initially we were working on just getting the kids back into school.
Yeah. School.
The month of August is a lot. And
That happened
then
in September. I died, came back.
she died and came back to life, but she's okay now.
Yes.
You were in the hospital
Y'all
for how
know
long?
I got this sickle cell crap. I was there for 6 days. They probably would have kept me longer, but I was like, I'm leaving. I was
Yeah.
like, please. So I had, my spleen was enlarged and it was just doing these weird things to my cells, and all my blood work was like wacky, and they're like, you look better in person than on paper. They tell me, and I'm like, well, hi. So, but I feel better, just trying to get my strength back and all that.
But we had to take a break. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry about
But
that.
we're
guys.
back.
Sorry. It's my fault.
We're back full force. But yes, we want to introduce Emerald. Emerald Rice is a lactation specialist with Cornerstone Lactation, correct? Tell us a little bit about who you are. And, tell us a little bit about Cornerstone. Just do a quick biography.
Yeah, so I guess I'll start by saying that I am a mom of 5. Ages are, let me get it right because there's a lot of birthdays this month, but I'm going to say 13, 12, 10, 5, and 2.
Dang, girl. I'm just kidding.
Lots of babies. And so I had my first, like I said, almost 14 years ago. And I guess I can start by saying when I was 7 years old, my mother had my little brother, and on the back of the book, she got like a what to expect when you're expecting kind of book. And on the last page was a woman breastfeeding, and she didn't look anything like me, but she just looked really motherly, like just the instinct was there. And she just loved her baby so much, so it seemed. And so I looked at that book, and I looked at the last page, and I looked at my twin sister, and I said, we're going to breastfeed. And she was like, okay, sure. And so,
Wait, you got a twin?
I do. I have an identical twin sister. Oh. I have an identical twin sister. And so, I remember giving birth to my first, and just thinking that it would just come really natural to me. But I had a really traumatic, 32-hour long labor and delivery. Looking back, he needed a ton of body work, all the things that I didn't know about before becoming a lactation consultant. And so, I remember just holding him and feeling like I didn't have a ton of support in the hospital, but I remember YouTubing how to latch a baby on. And that's kind of where I started. I thought it would come really natural to me, and it didn't. And so I ended up exclusively pumping for 11 months, 3 weeks, and 2 days. Not that I was counting.
I didn't know that.
I exclusively pumped every 2 to 3 hours for almost a year. The day after I finished pumping, I found out I was pregnant with my second. That's a whole nother story, y'all. I was like, what is life? But after that, I just really jumped into all things research because the mom guilt set in, of course. And I was like, I didn't get it right. I need to get it right with subsequent children. And so I just started researching a ton. And after a while, all of my friends would say, everyone knows all about breastfeeding, because at that point, we got married young. So while all my friends were partying in the club and y'all, we were having babies. And so by the time my friends started having babies, I kind of knew a little more, felt a lot more confident. And so they would say, everyone knows all about breastfeeding. And so that's pretty much where it all started. I have a bachelor's in social work, master's in counseling. Thought I want to work with the geriatric population. My grandma would have been 100 this year, so my family's a lot older. And so I always had an affinity towards just older people, so I thought that was my thing. Quickly realized that hospice was not my ministry. And so I like to be on the life-giving end of things.
There you go.
And so I'm an international board certified lactation consultant. I've been in IBCLC for 3 years. Before that, I was a breastfeeding peer counselor and a lactation educator through the state of North Carolina. So,
credentials.
okay,
Come on.
So I ended up exclusively pumping with my first, and with subsequent children, the longest I nursed was 3.5 years.
Oh my God.
Who was the longest?
Kylan, 3.5 years. Yeah, I know. I know.
I be ready to
have
get
a come
my
to Jesus
boot.
moment. Okay,
I be ready to get my boots back.
come on.
As soon as their birthday month come up, I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
Like,
I feel like mine just like hit the ground running at the 1 year mark, where I was like, okay, I finally get a little freedom. But then they would do what I call drive-by nursing, where he would have like a can of soda, and then he'd see me on the couch and like nurse and run off, and I'm like, seriously. So
that's funny.
But the longest has been 3.5 years. Ian just weaned. Our 5th baby just weaned in March, and he was a little over 2. So yes, that's my background.
Good for you, girl.
Yes. I know I have Cornerstone Lactation, which is a private practice that's been in operation for 1 year.
Yay.
And and so I have an office space. So I have an office space in Cary, North Carolina, but I specialize in home visits, offer virtual consults, breastfeeding classes, anything breastfeeding related. That's what I'm here for.
That's good.
She did my baby. Yes. That was fun. So after I had Araya, what was wrong with me? I was just
What was wrong with me?
You were really engorged, yeah.
And I
Got you, girl.
turn it.
Eat it.
Oh. So so I had Araya, and my milk came in really strong. And I was engorged. I'm trying to think what was the issue. Oh, she was born at 37 weeks. I know sometimes they say like they have issues with latching at first. So they said that she did like this thing where her tongue that was like kind of weird, and it hurt.
Yeah.
Sometimes it even still hurts. And I don't know why, but I'm like, maybe I don't even care anymore. I'm like, whatever.
She's really gaining weight, girl. I'm like, she ain't missing no meals.
She's a ham, guys. She's 16 pounds.
Yeah.
And Emerald came and did an assessment, and it was awesome to have that. I don't think I ever had that.
Oh, like the hands-on
Yeah.
aspect.
I never had anyone come and,
Yeah.
except for the hospital, they come in real
Hospital,
quick
they're
and then,
Put it on.
yeah, they just be like,
Yeah.
And that's definitely the difference. Like the hospital, there's like a rotation. Like if you're on the postpartum floor, they've got a certain amount of moms they have to see within an hour or two or during their shift. And so even with Cornerstone, it is just the whole experience is customized to you.
Yeah.
So when I came, I did an oral assessment, checked range of motion, or oral function. I had my scale, so I weighed her pre and post feed.
she like, remember she ate like what, 4
It
ounces,
was something
5 ounces?
ridiculous. Like I was like, bye girl, I'm going home. It was something crazy. But so her transfer is amazing, always has been. And so a lot of times the home visits are for reassurance, because you kind of don't know what you don't know, but a lot of times we're doing everything right, and you just need someone to say, oh, Portia, you're doing such a great job. And pretty much it was just like a confidence booster for you to realize like you don't have to do more than you're doing.
Yeah.
But you don't know that unless someone that's a specialist comes in and kind of reassures you.
Reassures,
So
right.
yeah.
Yeah, so we're still going strong. I thought I was gonna quit because my nipples was all bleeding and cracked, and I used a nipple shield for a while because I just had a heel,
Yeah.
and every time I would nurse her, she would like rip the scab off. I was like,
Oh, yeah.
I'm surprised I'm even still doing it because my patience, but
You're doing a good job. And like I said, the main thing is with breastfeeding, we say, oh, it's not supposed to be painful. Everyone's threshold is totally different, but the whole thing with like an oral assessment is I check like the palate, I check the tongue, because it's not supposed to be painful. Like you should know that your baby's latched, but it shouldn't be like, oh my goodness, this is the worst experience.
unbearable.
Exactly. But you're not used to a baby suckling all day, every day, every 2 to 3 hours. And so you're going to notice that the baby's there. But sometimes there are things like lip ties, tongue ties, those kind of things that impact latch. So it's really good to have an oral assessment, because you could be doing everything you're doing and doing it correctly, but it is a joint effort,
Right.
So a lot of times we feel like as moms, at least that's how I felt. I felt like, oh my goodness, like I'm not doing it right. When I had all the hardware, I was doing everything right. It was just that my first had an asynclitic birth, so he's really misaligned. He needed a ton of chiropractic care, like body work. He just wasn't aligned at the breast. So when I would put him to the breast, it would even hurt for him to open his mouth. And so that's stuff I didn't know. So I'm like, I can't do this, but really he needed a little more help. So that's things that I do, just oral assessments, give referrals, all that good stuff.
Maybe because he was so tall.
I know, right? I'm a 22-inch baby. I was like, what is life for what? But yeah.
Well, so coming from somebody, me, I did not breastfeed only because I wanted to sleep. Well, and like the boys just didn't latch on very well,
Some
and I was
babies
like,
don't.
"Bump this."
Some babies don't even like it. Like,
No,
or
like,
they don't have the patience to wait for the.
Every baby's totally
letdown.
different. Yeah.
I pumped for like 2 weeks, and I was like, "Nope, this is a workout." And I felt like the time that I was pumping, I could have been spending with my kids. And so, what is some advice that you give to moms who are frustrated? Because breastfeeding can lead to a lot of mental health things, right? A lot of, like you were saying, that mom guilt, a lot of the, I'm horrible at this, I'm not, what is some advice that you have for those moms who are like, I'm horrible?
Yeah. That's a really good question. And like, even with me, I had mom guilt exclusively pumping, so still giving my baby breast milk, but it wasn't coming straight from the source. And I felt like we weren't bonding, and I'm the worst mom in the world. I think it's a little different because most lactation consultants still have a background in counseling. And I think that's where mine is a little different, because I always say, when people, like when I do a home visit, a lot of moms see me and they're like, I didn't want to tell you this, or I didn't want to tell you that. I didn't know what you would say or think. And I always say, I am first and foremost a mommy sanity advocate. Like, I'm not going to tell you to nurse your baby. I had a mom a few weeks ago, was nursing her baby, had an abundance of milk, too much milk, honestly. And she was absolutely miserable. And her consult was, how do I stop breastfeeding? And the mom part of me is thinking, the mom part of me that thought, oh, I would have loved to have had that problem.
That much milk, right? Like,
I would have loved to have had that problem years ago. That part of me has to really take a back seat, because I'm not with her every day.
Yeah.
I'm not with her at 3 a.m.
You don't know what it's like. Yeah.
She probably has to get up extra to pump because she has so much milk.
She didn't have a really fortified support system. And so it's more than just latching a baby on. It's more than just milk supply. The mental health aspect is so important. And so because you could latch your baby on, but if you're having an absolutely horrible day, if you're going through with your husband, your job, whatever, oxytocin won't even be released for letdown to start. And so I always say, first and foremost, I am a mommy sanity advocate. I'm not the breastfeeding police.
Yeah.
If you want to breastfeed for 6 days, I'm here to show you how.
Yeah.
If you want to breastfeed for 6 years, I'm going to walk you through it, So the main thing is just meeting you where you are. Yeah. So because I know what it's like, because I feel like you always have mom guilt. I had mom guilt giving my baby express breast milk. And so, and looking back, I'm like, why did I have that mom guilt? But
because some people are like, I wish I could have pumped something. Like, I wish I could have.
Yeah, so it's like, it'll be this never ending cycle unless you just decide, like, this is what it is and this is how it's going to be. So yeah.
I know I felt bad giving, when I was in the hospital, the baby was on formula because I was on heavy meds. So I was literally pumping and dumping, which sucked because I'm just like, look at all this milk and I got to just throw it away. But another reason sometimes I get mom guilt is because I have, sickle cell, and I'm like, it requires pain management. So I'm like, sometimes I refrain from taking meds because I don't want to have to not breastfeed her. But then it's like, am I even taking care of me? Because if I'm not taking care of me, I'm going to end up in the hospital, then I'm going to be away from her. So it's like,
even longer. Yeah.
I need to find a balance to where I need to feed her. So I felt bad about giving her formula, but my pediatrician was like, she's like, don't feel bad about giving her formula. Even she's like, you're still breastfeeding. She's still getting the benefits of breast milk too. And I'm like, you're right. So,
and to be honest, this is a double-edged sword because, it's a journey. And I think when people say like a breastfeeding journey, that sounds cliche. But the initial days, I feel like I'm one of the only LCs. It's like, this can be really hard. Like a lot of times it's like, this is how it should go. I'm never that way because some women get it and it's effortless. Some women, it takes a lot more. And I was one of those women that it took a lot more for. But now I'm able to kind of show women, like, because I went through so much in the past, but it's one of those things where it's just like every day is different. Like introducing solids, that's a whole nother thing. Getting to the 1 year mark, trying to get to the 1 year mark. Like there is no right or wrong. And I always say, like, instead of having like a game plan, I pretty much just have like a template. Like, and I stopped saying like, oh, I want to breastfeed until 6 months. I want to breastfeed until a year. I really had to start doing like a monthly goal. And that actually helped me reach my long-term goal, because if I was hyper-focused on 6 months from now, then I would be so overwhelmed, like trying to get to that end point.
Yeah, just keep thinking about that.
And so my goal would say, okay, baby's 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. And that made it a little easier for me because I wasn't hyper-focused and stressed out about the next milestone. And that's with all things with motherhood in general, with parenting. So it is a journey. Everyone's journey looks totally different. The main thing is doing what you can and just having that suffice, like knowing like I've done what I can do and that's all I can do, because you will be, like I said, on this hamster wheel of mom guilt and that will affect everything about you. That'll affect your mental health, the way you parent, the way you perceive your children, the way they interact with you. And I think I can say that, like, being a mom of 5, I can see how my personality has changed with all 5. And I'm a lot more cool, calm, and collected because I had so much pressure on myself for no reason. Like, my oldest is 6 feet tall. He's 13, 6 feet tall, wears a size 13 shoe. Nobody can tell that he didn't get it straight from the tap. And I'm sitting here stressed out. And when he was 5 years old, I felt so guilty, right? So I took him to Chick-fil-A right before he started kindergarten. And I let him get whatever he wanted. And I'm just sitting there like having a mommy and son date. And I'm just crying and crying. And he's like, if you don't pass me that Polynesian, like, he was like, you were sitting here. And so I realized in that moment, this was 8 years ago, I realized like, he does not care. And so
they just want to eat.
They just want to eat. Yeah. And so, but I do understand like having this idea of how things are supposed to go, even with like a birth plan. That's the same thing too. I had a birth plan of like an all natural birth. And then after 28 hours, I got an epidural that only took on the left side of my body. And that was miserable. And then I had an asynclitic birth, pushed for over 2 hours. And then that led to the whole spiral of the whole breastfeeding journey and just being like, okay, this is not what I envisioned. So the mom guilt honestly started in labor. It started before I even met him. And I had to really tell myself, like, you can't keep doing this. Like with subsequent children, you can't try to get it perfect, try to get it right. It's going to be what it's going to be. And I think it's really hard, especially for first-time moms to hear that. But I think with having so much experience, I'm just like, y'all.
Shoot, after that first one,
it's not as serious.
You just be like, look, it is what it is.
Yeah. I would say the first baby's a guinea pig baby. I'm always like, y'all, I didn't know what I was doing. He knows I didn't know what I was doing. We're okay. Like, we've grown together. It's fine.
My first was traumatic too.
I'm like, we didn't know. And I'm sorry we didn't know.
But then you had natural births after.
I did. Yes. I went from a hospital birth with my first, very traumatic. I had a 2nd-degree vaginal floor tear with him. # do not recommend. That was horrible. Absolutely horrible.
If you want it, don't.
Oh my gosh, that was horrible. And then with our 2nd and 3rd, we gave birth in a birth center, and that was an all-natural birth that I had with those 2. And the 3rd was a water birth, and that's what I really wanted. I was wanting a water birth so bad. And then our 3rd active labor from start to finish was like an hour and a half. And so we had to drive like over 45 minutes to get to the birth center, barely made it there. And my husband looked at me and he said, if we're ever crazy enough to do this again, we're doing it at home. So that's how I became a home birth mama with our 4th and 5th, because we couldn't make it anywhere. Like I was afraid I'd give birth in the car. And I'm glad I did, because the 4th was an hour start to finish, and the 5th was an hour start to finish.
It's crazy how fast it is when it's natural.
It was unreal. Like it was back to back.
Boom,
like
boom.
As soon as I would stand up, I'm like, okay, the baby's here. So, so then
She does have a YouTube channel.
Oh,
The Rice Life.
We have a YouTube channel, The Rice Life. I started uploading in 2008. So that's what, almost 15.
A lot.
Almost 15 years.
Wow.
Ooh,
I'm horrible at math, so yes, it is.
I think the end of this year will be almost 15 years. I was actually one of the first people to get monetized on YouTube, which is pretty cool. I became a YouTube partner in 2010. But I started out doing pregnancy updates with Kane, and I would say, I'm Edie Hill 1988, and I'm 7 weeks pregnant. And I did all the pregnancy updates up until birth, and his birth is on YouTube. I think it's 2 parts to it. And then I recorded like every week of his first year of life, uploaded that. So it was more of like a lifestyle channel. We called them vlogs back then, not even vlogs. We called them vlogs.
Really? I don't even know.
Vlogs. And so we did that. And then I kind of became known for breastfeeding, lifestyle content. I had a lock journey. I went through tattoo removal. I talked about being
I didn't know that.
Girl, that's a whole nother story. That was a whole series that's still ongoing. Braces journey. So mine was just like more of like, I'm getting braces and here's the journey. So it was more like lifestyle content, and then random vlogs here and there. But I was mainly known for like the natural birth, like those will go viral, like the water births and that kind of thing. And so
I watched your thing. I actually watched it like last year, and the girls were there, and she was like, "Oh, that's Ellie. Was having a baby. That's Ellie." It was Ellie.
Oh, Elle Bell, yeah.
She's cute.
So Elena was like,
"Oh." So we hardly do our YouTube now. It's more of just like I kind of update people. But now with Cornerstone just booming and like me working full time, I was mainly doing YouTube when I was a stay-at-home mom. So yeah,
nice. So for those, so the moms who unfortunately breastfeeding just ends up not being the route the Lord wants them to go on at that point. Yeah. What are some tips and tricks that they can do to ensure that their children are getting that nutrition the vitamins and everything that they need.
Yes, and so you're saying like if they're not getting breast milk, the alternative is formula,
Right.
and so
Do you have a favorite?
I actually don't, and I think most LCs don't, because I think with formula there's like
Depends on
specialty.
the baby.
It depends on the babies. There's specialty formulas. There's for colic. There's for gas. There's dairy. I mean, there's dairy free. There's like so much for babies that are lactose intolerant. Like you never know. And so the main thing would be to find a formula that is pretty standard, and then so your baby tolerates it. But honestly, with formula, it's preparing it per the instructions on the back, and it has all the prep stuff on the back, like making sure you use a certain, like clean water, all those things, it's pretty. But I think the main thing with formula is really gauging your baby's, the way your baby takes it, because some babies can take whatever and it's fine. And some babies are a little more, you have to be a little more gentle with them. So, I think that's it. There's really not. A lot of times, like I said, if you have to switch a ton of formulas, it's because you might notice that your baby has a rash, like an eczema, or they might have like a stool that's maybe frothy and green, or mucousy stool. Like there are different things that let you know, like, okay, if this is the only thing my baby's taking, then something's going on. So you would definitely, go to your pediatrician and kind of talk with them, and maybe even have to get a prescription. It just depends on what your baby is experiencing.
Yo, I had a baby Brezza. That's like
Isn't that like the Keurig for formula?
Yes. We got so much sleep.
Oh yeah.
Listen, that thing, we gave it to the Clemens family, so they have it now, and I'm like, man,
I wish I
it
could
was the
sleep.
biggest life. It was the biggest.
I'm like, I wish I could sleep.
I'm
tired.
Oh,
yeah, and I can say with breastfed babies, a lot of times, well, quite often they will get up a little more often, just because breast milk isn't as thick as formula.
It's watery.
It is a little more watery, and so babies get everything they need. But of course, they'll be getting up maybe every 2 to 3 hours. We typically consider sleeping through the night to be only 5 hours.
Yeah.
So a lot of times
I told my therapist, and she was like,
yeah.
you should let your husband, you should pump so you could sleep more.
But then it's like, but
then I'm
more
up
work for
pumping.
you. But then you're up pumping.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it's like, what's the point? I'm already up.
I hate pumping.
And I think with the whole supply and demand thing, that's probably the biggest thing that I have to dispel as a lactation consultant, because people think if you pump, then you give it to the baby, then you go to sleep. But it's like if you pump, but then you skip a nursing session or another pump session, then your body thinks like, okay, Portia, this is all you need to make. So let me start decreasing supply. And so you're still pretty much scheduled with breastfeeding. And that's why I have to tell a lot of moms, like, you will be up a little more often. The whole baby sleeping through the night thing is only classified as 5 hours, and that is rare. And I think I'm a little more realistic when it comes to that, because people think by the time the baby's a month old or 2 months old, they should be getting 8-9 hours of sleep. Babies typically
girl.
No, babies typically nurse 8 to 12 times in 24 hours. So that's every 2 to 3 hours. I tell moms to not go more than a 5-hour stretch at night, because if they go longer than that, then they're getting out of that 8 to 12 times in 24 hours window. And so I think once I tell moms that the first time I meet them, then they're not like, okay, what's going on? My baby's an alien. Like, why is my baby not sleeping? So I think the main thing is with motherhood in general, I feel like we have to start being a little more realistic, because
100%.
I'm like, tell moms it's okay. You will not get sleep, and we need to normalize fortifying that support system, being able to FaceTime a friend in the middle of the night, scrolling on your Instagram, having your husband do whatever. Like, you've got to find ways to really decompress, because it's a lot of work, and we need to normalize motherhood being a lot of work.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
So
there's so many.
facts.
There's a good handful of people who are first time moms, right? That listen to us or follow you and stuff. And so, what is your best advice, or like the first time mom advice, like for somebody who's going straight into breastfeeding? What is that hands down go-to advice that you give them?
Psych.
Run as fast as you can and
Just
buy a baby
kidding.
Brezza.
Just a baby. Let's say a mom that's first time mom wants to breastfeed. What would I tell them first? Go ahead and find your support before you even give birth. Like, find a lactation consultant that is reputable. That
There's one that I know. Her name is Emerald Rice, and she
Don't
works
take me while
for.
you're pregnant. But that's the thing. Like, in all healthcare, I think a big discrepancy we have is like not really getting to know our providers before we need them. A lot of because I know with my husband and I, we had our fourth, we were really proactive about finding a midwife before we got pregnant, interviewing her, meeting with her before we got pregnant. So we felt really confident with her. When we got pregnant, we were like, okay, you talked to us 6 months ago, we're pregnant now. A lot of times we kind of, in healthcare, a lot of times with lactation, I feel like crisis case management, where it's like people say they've heard of me, but then they only come to me when they absolutely need it. And it's like, I could have put you in my schedule, or at least had you like as little bookmarks saying she gives birth in 2 or 3 months. Like I can kind of work around it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I say, identify your lactation consultant before you give birth. If you have a certain pediatrician, make sure that they have one on site. If you're giving birth in a hospital, they'll have lactation there. But identify postpartum lactation support, whether it's someone like me that has private practice and does in-home or in office. Identify someone at your pediatrician's office. Like really, when you have that list of people that you're going to call to tell that the baby's here, make sure you have your providers on standby and contact them, let them know about you. I love when someone says, hey, I heard of you from so-and-so midwife, and I just want to make sure that I introduce myself. And I'm like, okay, like that way we can actually get to know one another, and I don't feel like I'm trying to rush to see you, and I don't want you to feel like a burden when you meet me. A lot of times moms apologize to me because as soon as I see them, they're stressed out, overwhelmed, they're crying, and they're like, hey, like, can you help me? Like, please help me. And their shirts wide open, and as soon as I meet them at the front door, like their boobs out. And so, and I don't mind, it's my job, but I think just for peace of mind for first-time moms, identifying your support people before you actually need them. That way you're not so overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And the typical things, nursing within the golden hour. So when baby's born.
What's the golden hour for those who don't know?
So the golden hour is the first hour after baby's born. They're the most awake, the most active, and the most willing to nurse, whether that's a vaginal birth or cesarean. I've seen moms have cesarean birth, and while they're getting stitched up, like baby is on the breast. And so making sure that baby is acquainted with the breast within the first hour. And then after that, nursing on demand, which means like if your baby starts to root, if your baby's eyes flutter while they're sleeping, doing a dream feed, like making sure that your baby knows to go to the breast. And so that's kind of how you get baby acquainted, how oxytocin flows. Once your placenta is expelled, your body already knows, like, okay, it's time to make milk.
And they do those postpartum things.
Once your placenta is expelled, your body's going to say, okay, like everything's activated. It's time to make milk no matter what. But the goal is for your baby to know that every time they do this, they think that when they do this, they get a burger, salad, whatever they like to eat. And so the goal is for them to say, like, okay, this is the breast. This is where the milk comes from. And for them to actively start to transfer. So, yeah, that's what I say.
Like, Ryan, as soon as she came out, she was like already trying to, like, she gonna be a one.
Yeah, right away.
On top of me.
Not postponing breastfeeding.
So for my last question, I'm sorry, I just have all the questions. This is biblical based, so focused. What is one scripture that you go by consistently with your being a mom of 500 having your own business, right? Seeing all these moms, and how do you stay centered through all of this? Because as somebody who's helping others who are going through, hell and high water, right? At times, what keeps you centered?
It's so cliche, y'all. Oh my goodness.
Never.
Y'all already know God is
okay, maybe. Just kidding.
It is. It literally is. God is within her. She will not fall. Psalm 46:5. And that has been the scripture of my life forever. And like I said, it seems cliche because it's on every Stanley Cup. It's on every, it's on the back of every minivan.
We need a sticker.
But that's what has honestly helped me just cling to God, cling to what I thought my purpose was. I remember, like I said, giving birth to my first and thinking like, Lord, why did you do this? Like, what am I doing? Like, why do you trust me with this baby? Like, I'm not ready for this. And really having to feel trusted by God and being like, okay, I'm not going to fail. Like, he would not give me this. And it sounds cliche, but like, he would not give me this if he thought that I wasn't prepared, if he thought that I was ill-equipped. And so that has honestly helped instill so much confidence in me, because a lot of times we will feel inadequate. We will feel the mom guilt. We will feel shame. We will feel all these things. Just because we have an idea of how life's supposed to go for us. But I already know no matter what happens, no matter what comes my way, like, I'm not going to fail. Like, I'm just not. And it's not a narcissistic mindset. It's just like, I'm not going to fail. Like, I'm going to do this.
I refuse to fail.
Because he ain't going to fail.
I refuse to not succeed. And so I lean on that because there are days where you don't feel like you're gonna make it. Like, I could be very honest. There are days where I look around and I'm like, oh, I'm a mom that's on top of the world and I got the hang of this. And then there are days where I'm like, Lord, you really thought I could handle 5 people? Like, if you say so. So I just know, like, I'm not gonna fail. And I think just having that mindset allows me to, like, even the kids see that in me. They're like, Mom's a go-getter. And like I said, I was a stay-at-home mom for so long, and that was my role. But now I'm coming out of that and going into full-time employment and like everything's had to be completely restructured. But I feel like I was a darn good stay-at-home mom.
Yeah, yeah.
And I had to really get to that point because at first I didn't feel that way, and then I was like, that is still.
Oh, I'm good at this.
Yeah.
So just having that confidence and really hoping that that's expressed, like God's confidence in me shows, you know.
Yeah.
I don't ever want to say that, oh, it's I do this and I do that. Like, y'all, I'm telling you now, this is only God and for his glory, because I've tried to do so many things on my own and they didn't work. And every time I try to do things on my own, they never work. And so just leaning on him, and he just whispers to me all the time, like, you're not going to fail.
Yeah.
Like, you got this. And so, like I said, that scripture seems cliche, but I think that's the reason it's so popular.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a good
It's
one.
like, we need that as moms. We need that. Like, we're not going to fail. And you're doing a good job.
Yeah. And all of this is
Girl, you doing a
all
good
of
job.
it is so mental.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and it's
Yes.
about how you think, right? And if at one point you are like, I'm great at this, and then all of a sudden something goes wrong, you say, I totally suck. You gotta change. You gotta shift that mindset, because
sure.
it's you know, that's the devil, right? Playing with our minds, and it's like, hey, this is the most open door, unfortunately, to the
Yeah.
devil. And so it's something that, you know, not only as moms but dads and kids is as moms, we need to train our kids to have that positive shift in mindset. And, you know, you guys were great at breastfeeding, right? I said bump that, right? But guess what? All our kids are healthy, and that's what I think that moms need to understand, that hey, yo, it is okay if you only breastfed for 2 weeks. That's fine, because guess what? Your child is alive and they're eating. And I think society today, which I would love to drop kick sometimes,
Mom shaming.
the mom shaming of, what do you mean you only breastfed for 2 weeks? Or wow. Well, and on the reverse, right, is sometimes that they will drop kick you because you breastfed for so long. And it's like, since when is there a deadline?
Yeah.
Mind you, if you're breastfeeding for 3 months or 3 years versus 3 months, guess what? That child is getting what they need.
Exactly.
Right. And so that just having that positive mindset and to be able to shift and turn to God and turn to your support when they need it is so critical.
Yeah, I agree. And I think what I want to do is just pause, because you said, like, oh, we were successful with breastfeeding. Like, but a lot of times I wasn't successful with putting my mental health first. And so even with you, like, you were successful at being able to navigate that and saying, like, I know for my mental health, this is what I need to do. Like I always say, I'm not the breastfeeding police, but I have so many people that really struggle, and it's because they feel like this is what they have to do. Of course, we all know the benefits of breast milk. We all know all the properties, but the main thing is, like I said, the mental health aspect is so important. And in our society, it's what is honestly a lot of times overlooked. And I know a lot of moms that have nursed for 2 and 3 years, and they were miserable. Yeah. And to not say it's right or wrong, but it's just like, my goal is for every mom to know that her journey is her specifically. And I don't want you to feel like you're not successful because things didn't look the way you thought they would, but you're successful at momming. And that's what's most important. Like, you're like, all these kids are thriving, happy, walking around, like talking, like all the things. And so, like I said, it could just be so difficult to feel like we have to reach these milestones. And honestly, it's just day by day.
Yeah.
I'm like, girl, I nursed for 3 years, but I was out here, I was miserable. So I'm not gonna lie. Like, I remember even looking at him. He was 3.5. I was working full time, and he was nursing all night long. He was still getting up pretty often to nurse. And I got down on his level, and I said, "Kylan, you're a big boy. Mommy's working full time. Do you mind if we stop nursing?" He says, "Okay." I'm sitting here like,
I ain't asking nothing. But
and so, but I just felt like I didn't know. I was just like, oh, he'll self-wean. And he never did. But I didn't even trust him enough to decide that he was
have
done.
that conversation.
I was just like, I'm going to keep nursing because that's what he wants. But he's like, I'm fine. And then 2 weeks later, he got hurt outside, and he came in the house, and he tried to nurse because that was what he was used to. And he couldn't remember how to nurse. Like, he started to latch, and he was like, what's going on here? And so, but I don't wear that as a badge of honor. Like, I nursed for 3.5 years. It was just like, that's what we did. And that was our normal, you know? And so, if you nurse for 3 months, if you nurse for 6 months, if you make it to a year, I'm here to help you meet whatever goal you have. I have some moms that are like, I only want to nurse long enough to go back to work. And then I want to pump, and then I tell them, okay, well, if you want to pump, we have to make sure that you've got a routine so that your supply doesn't diminish. Like, there are so many things that go into it, but my goal is to help you meet your goal.
That's good. Well, and for moms to be able to set those goals. Like, remember, it's okay to set because little goals can lead to one big one. And so that's something that all moms should take into consideration, is that whether it's a 4-hour goal or a 4-year goal, a goal is a goal. And when you achieve that, it's it's awesome.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But any last words? That sounds bad. That sounds bad. Awkward. Well, please take a minute while you guys are listening to go follow Emerald on the Instagrams. Are you on the Instagrams and the Facebooks?
My Instagram is Emmy Rice, and I'm pretty active on there. Like, I just upload a lot of pictures of the kids, to be honest, but I'm pretty active on Emmy Rice. The Instagram for Cornerstone Lactation, I'm pretty sure it's just Cornerstone Lactation. I don't think it's an LLC behind it, but either way, you'll see it. It's got my little logo. But Cornerstone Lactation on Instagram, Emmy Rice on Instagram, The Rice Life on Facebook, The Rice Life on YouTube, Cornerstone Lactation on Facebook. I'm like, if you type in either one, you're gonna find me. So
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, thank you for hanging out with
Thanks
us.
for coming over.
Don't worry, she's going to be back on our next episode because she's hanging out with us. We're going to talk about interracial marriage. Let's go. Because we're all in an interracial marriage. But don't forget to follow us on the Instagrams. You know, all the routines, all the Facebooks.
I'm sorry.
All the Facebooks. But thanks for hanging out. We'll chat later. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.